Welcome to Your Next Level Now with your host, Bob Donnell. As a human behaviorist, Bob has helped people from every walk of life reach their next level, both personally and professionally. Whether a celebrity, professional athlete, or entrepreneur, Bob has helped them align their behavior with their desired result in their life and career. This is Your Next Level Now with Bob Donnell.
It is so fun to meet people around the globe. But I got to tell you, today takes the cake. We've had people from Amsterdam be here and early hours and different. But today we have a lady that I have mad respect for anyone who can make a commitment to get up at 3:00 to be on a podcast. And she didn't have to get up at 3:00. She had to be online at 3. So she no telling what time she had to get up. But I tell you guys, it's funny because we have guests of honor sometimes that they make the appointment. It's a certain time and they forget to show up. And you go, how can they forget to show up? They pick the date, they pick the time, and they can't show up. And then you've got somebody from all around the world who's getting up at, ungodly hours to be on a podcast at 3:00. Mad respect for that. So, Roslyn, I have just such an appreciation for the work that you're doing. Thank you. Today we're going to talk about codependency, and we're going to talk. She's a codependency coach, and I'm telling you guys, I've watched some of her videos. It's going to be interesting because I think a lot of us don't even realize what codependency is. And we don't realize how affected it affects how every other area of our life. It's not just the relationship that you have with a codependent person. It's the whole gamut it's the underlying current, if you will, yes, for so many other areas of our lives. So, guys, invite your friends right now. Bring them online. Bring them so that they can participate. They can on Zoom or in the Facebook group. But guys, I just want to start off with a question because you guys, as we go through this thing called life together, we encounter all kinds of different people, and we encounter all kinds of different relationships and all kinds of different behaviors. And the bottom line is, if we can ever get to the point of what the base is, then we can work from there. But unfortunately, a lot of our bases are skewed by other people in our lives, by the way we were raised, by the way, we were treated in school, the way we were treated at work, or in a relationship that we were in that we knew it didn't feel healthy, but we stayed anyways, and we didn't know why. Or we gave allowances and allowances and allowances because we didn't understand why we were doing that. And we're going to get to know that. I'm going to start off, Roslyn, with the question, and I know the answer, but I want them to hear it from you. What makes you an expert in this area?
Because of my lived experience and because of all the research and live. In the year 2000, Bob, my codependency took me to my deathbed. I was so sick through a series of events for up to 15 years prior to that. I was so sick that my sister took me to the hospital on the 15th of January, year 2000, and I was begging the doctors to let me die. Now, what I want to add in here, Bob, is I didn't use any substances, so I don't drink. Thank God I didn't pick up the bottle, because I'm not sure I would have put it down, to be perfectly honest, because I have alcoholism in my family. And so it's to stay alive, to carry this message to others, because way back then I'd go to psychiatrists, psychologists, not to blanket them all and not to put people down, but they didn't get me, Bob, especially when I didn't use substances. If I'd have said I drank a bottle of vodka every day, they'd go, oh, well, you're alcoholic, you go off to rehab. Then and still now in Australia, there's no rehabs for codependency, which I believe sits underneath. You got it, underneath all the other stuff.
Yeah. So well said. And I want to really mention your book, so we'll talk about that today and show them how they can get it. Do you have a copy of it right there?
I do, right here for you.
Look at this book, guys. This is so cool.
Yes, this is the second edition, Bob. I just republished my book. My first book was actually called Emotional Sobriety.
I loved the title of that. I was so excited when I saw the title, Emotional Sobriety. I was like, oh, that's a catch. That's a catch.
So this is my book, and it's a very practical book. I even tell people like how I give them the words of how to say no. With the big full stop, I put shut mouth. You know why? Because that's what I'd do. I'd write out the script on my kitchen bench, and I'd write the things, and then I'd write next door to it, shut mouth. Like for me.
Oh, yeah, right. For you.
So it's a combination in my journey where it's come from, the lived experiences. There was weeks I couldn't get out of bed for weeks. I couldn't get out of bed, but gradually, and then I've got this fire in my belly to bring it out, because like you said, I don't think people understand it.
They don't. Yeah, they don't. Unless you've experienced it. And even then, you've only experienced it, so you really you don't understand it. You just experience what the ramifications of it were, what the repercussions were.
You've got to have climbed yourself out of the trenches every step of the way, which is the learnings on the way. So that's why now when I'm coaching and they'll share, and or I might give them a suggestion, and they'll go, how do you know? I'm thinking, oh, I know.
I know.
And I say, you can share with me anything, because I've either done it or thought about it. So don't worry.
Yeah, I do really appreciate that. And I think why I wanted to start off with that question that I asked is, what makes you an expert? Is because in knowing your background, it's like, what makes you an expert is that you've lived it, that you've experienced it firsthand.
Yeah, well, I just believe that that's the biggest learning on the planet. You know, I just think it's the best learning, and you've kind of climbed your way out of that trench. So then you can put your hand down into those holes that people get and go, here's my hand, hold my hand, I'll walk with you. Yeah.
And that you've done the work. You know, that's what makes the expert, in my opinion.
I had to, otherwise I wouldn't be here.
You would have died, yeah.
And there was quite a few times I had quite a few bottoms, even after that really rock bottom, because it's taken me. Another thing I'd like to mention, Bob, is codependency has wiped me out or taken me to a bottom in you mentioned it, every area of my life, financially, friends, business, marriage, children.
Yeah.
And it's progressive and generational from my codependency. And so if I just go back a little bit for a quick, I'm from a small town in New Zealand, beautiful country, small town from there. My father was dead with alcoholism at 47. My mother had a stroke at 55, and she just died a few years. Very enterprising people, business people, but again, couldn't manage their emotions. So of course,
and you know, who was institutionalized?
My mother, after a stroke at 55.
And you think about, you know, is that the best we've got for somebody who's dealing with these mental and emotional conditions, is to institutionalize them? I mean, that it seems like there's not a whole lot available to people, right?
Well, at the level I'm on, at the level, so this was 35, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So then, but my thing is, it's not that much different today, Bob.
Right.
So I came from that background. So of course, what did I do at 18? I met a guy that was an alcoholic. Surprise, surprise. It was my normal. It's what I knew. And then it wasn't my mother sitting at the table, which I've watched for years, crying because of the drinking and the row. It was me doing the same. So I transferred that onto my children, who have had 25 years of drug, alcohol abuse as well. So the thing is, if we don't stop it, the buck's got to stop somewhere, and someone's got to go, I'll do whatever it takes to turn the ship around.
Amen. Amen. So let's just stop right there. How does someone identify that they are in a codependent relationship, or that they have basis for codependencies in their own lives, whether it's with somebody else or with an addiction of something, some other product or anything else? How do they identify? What's the best thing they can do to identify what they need to change?
First thing is to reach out for help. We live in a society now with, look at this wonderful internet that we can do this, Bob. How fantastic is this? So we live in a society where ignorance is not a choice. There's information out there, there's videos. So reach out for help, and get someone to help you on the journey. We know that through the addiction fields that it can't be done alone, but we need to get the right help. I've gone to a lot of different help over the years, and I've felt worse. So get help. Don't get the courage to ring up and just say, this is where my life's at, and find someone that's got out of the trenches of where you're getting out of, that walks the talk, not just talks the talk.
Well, and I think that's where you come in. You're a coach in this. You help people in recovery to recover.
So
let's help people identify, how do they know that they need help?
Well, they're not feeling good in their lives. Like you said, they feel stuck and they're paralyzed with fear. They're running around doing everything for everybody else. They're in a relationship, but the thought of getting out, that those 3 a.m. thoughts that they wake up with, you know, that them in their heart, their soul speaks, but then at 6 o'clock, they turn the alarm off and get off and keep doing it and doing it. And because they're paralyzed by fear, Bob, they don't know what to do. And usually these people, like myself years ago, all their friends are codependent as well. So Mary Lou down the road, she feels the same. So people get with Mary Lou and we all just talk about our problems and nobody does anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And go right to the bottom, and also get someone that can support you, baby step at a time, someone to be accountable to, someone to be responsible, and learn and grow. Just like 30 years ago, I didn't have the internet. I'd crawl to the bookshops, get my credit card to buy a book and eat the books. As I'm sure a lot of us had. Like, I would just be so hungry, I'd see myself in these books. That's me.
I think one of the things you brought up in your talks, and that we've already even discussed right before, is that it's such an underlying current that I don't think people go, oh, this is why I'm feeling this way. This is why I'm doing so much for everybody else and not taking care of myself. It's because of codependency. They don't think that because it's an underlying current that goes unseen, but the ramifications are very real, and they feel the ramifications of the codependent. They just don't know what to label it.
They can't connect it. And you're so right. I love that you've got this knowledge. It flows underneath, and it's just going into every area: financial, business, relationships. It's relationships, everything. Anywhere, friendships. We usually, when we're deeply codependent, our friends are all codependent. You know, we're allowing people to treat us because our self-esteem is so low, and then it's like we don't know where to go. So the first thing would be to, in this day and age, is get some information, have the courage, even just to yourself, to identify. Don't even tell anybody, because you'll tell your friend, oh, I think I'm the, oh no, you're not, because they're very codependent and they want you to.
It's true. It's true.
Just you know what I'm talking about, Bob.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I do. As a student of human behavior, I see it in every facet of life. And so that's why, for me, anything that is a foundational point for us, we need to focus on the foundational points, because we're typically focusing on the things that are the results, the cause, or not the cause, but the symptom of.
Yeah, we're doing, and the government put money into the symptoms. I don't think you need to go too far into the tragedies on the news. I don't watch the news, but I know what's going on. Underneath it is a deep layer of codependency and control.
Absolutely.
Codependency is control, where as codependents, we're so out of control inside, we're trying to control every outside. If you like me, I'll feel all right. But if you don't like me, then I'll keep working harder to help to get you to like I did with my husband.
How did that manifest itself for you?
Do you mean the liking or the?
How did it show up for you, and then how did you
okay.
recognize it to do something about it?
Well, I was getting sicker and sicker, as I'd said to you. We'd shifted from New Zealand to Australia because our marriage, I'd married an alcoholic. So the marriage was getting worse and worse. I thought when we came to Australia, things will be different. And the reality was closing in. So 33, 34 years, 35 years ago, I reached out. There's another avenue for help. I went to Al-Anon, a 12-step program for family. It doesn't even cost anything.
Right. Yeah.
To gain some knowledge. That doesn't mean I still stayed in that marriage for 12 years, because my fantasy was my husband would get sober and we wouldn't have to break up the family. It's difficult when you've got children. Now, when I look back, Bob, I thought my children were growing up in the same toxic suit that I grew up in.
If I were to take your children, how many children do you have?
I have 4.
If I were to take your oldest child,
yes,
and say, what did you experience? What price did you pay as a child of? What would they say?
I think they would say very dearly. Their lives have not been good. They've struggled with alcohol addiction. And so for the last 25 years for me, it's been prisons, rehabs, overdoses. At one stage, I had one in prison, one having open heart surgery from a dirty heroin needle, one just trying to get into rehab all at once. So that was another thing. I had to really dig deep to keep myself. And my main driver was to show the children another way. Now, we're not through that yet, but I wanted them to see a different mother. And I wasn't like, I've been running businesses, but I was fully blown codependent. And what I want to say there is, my husband was alcoholic, but I was no different. I was full blown codependent, 2 addicts equally. And I was out of my mind. I was running a business. I had 4 children. I was work. So that brought in work addiction. I thought, if I just, get another business, I'll look good in the world. So I'd work myself. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. So one, I want to just pause for a second and acknowledge you.
Thank you.
And I really want to take this moment to acknowledge you, because some of the things that we as parents feel guilty about and feel remorse about, that we could have, should have, would have done things differently. And the fact that you're being so open and vulnerable about saying, these are the real things. Children in prison, children in addictions, children in bad relationships, all those things. I just really want to acknowledge you and tell you thank you for being who you are.
Thank you. Appreciate it
in this space.
Really deeply. I say to clients that come to me now, especially if they've got tiny children, I say, do the work now. Don't do what I did, because I was still struggling through it and the horse had bolted for me. I say, do the work now. And, and as you said, the guilt and shame of me, of my addiction to codependency and not cleaning up earlier, or it looked all right we lived on the Brisbane River here, beautiful home. I had a fabulous business, looked all right on the outside, inside it was a mess.
If you could pick one word that would describe the life of a codependent, somebody in the codependency, what would be the one word?
Out of control.
Out of control. Yeah.
Bob, this is what, do you know, I'd had my 4 children in the car, and I know on 3 occasions, I'm not proud to admit this, I ran red lights with 4 children in the back of the car, because I was just like, out of my mind, trying to do and hold and, all of the things. Now, if let's say, God forbid, it didn't happen, an accident, but if I'd have been drinking, that would have been manslaughter. That's what I want to say. We're no different.
No
The actual
different.
similarities to alcohol and codependency, they have the same roots in them. People don't understand the fatality of codependency. It's everywhere. It's cancer. It's heart attacks. It's murders. It's
Diabetes,
accidents, diabetes, food addiction. It's all of those things. All of those things underneath it is the codependency.
You know, you talked about it being the root, right? Being the cause of the root of addictions. And I think most people don't really see it being the root of an addiction. But when they understand what codependency is, what's the easiest way to describe codependency to somebody who doesn't have a technical term for it?
Okay, so the condition of the lost self. We've lost ourselves to an addiction. We don't know who we are. Our life is unmanageable. The first step of the 12-step, my life is unmanageable. So you've lost, and I say it's like find yourself again, but it's not actually just finding who you were. It's growing. The growth, the journey is fantastic. And it's an arduous journey, like any addiction, staying sober, emotionally sober. So we're disconnected, we're out of control, our life is unmanageable, and we're trying to hold it together like all the beach balls under the water. And then we get sick, it's exhausting, and we can't do it. But as codependents, I'd get up and I'd do it again, I'd do it again, I'd do it again.
Yeah, I think, you know, in my experience with this subject matter is people, they think codependency, oh, I'm not codependent on them, they're codependent on me. No, the word co is the identifier that it's both. Right. But they think codependency, oh yeah, they're codependent on me. No, there's a codependency there. How do you help somebody separate that from blaming them, right? Or shaming yourself? What's the balance in there where it becomes healthy?
Well, you get someone that understands it. You get someone that gets you to take 100% responsibility for your role in it. I'd say they take 100% of 50%. Your 100% of 50%. If people come to me, I don't let them blame. If they go, but they did this, I'll say, you know, and without shame and guilt, you've allowed it, but you can stop allowing it. And you're right, they'll go, oh, I'm not codependent, but they're codependent on me. And I'll go, no, you're equally codependent. You got to get someone that cares, that calls it as it is and goes, I can help you. I can hold your hand and work through. If you're committed and you have the resilience to stay the journey, then there is another way to live. That's what I say, because I know. And then that's not an egoic thing. That's not, I'm wonderful. I've been blessed with the journey I've had.
Ooh, I love that term. I think most people who've gone through the journey you've had don't call themselves blessed. I remember I was having a conversation with Garth Brooks once, and I said about my daughter dying, and he said, how do you deal with that? I said, well, I've been very blessed. And he said something similar to me. He said, wait, blessed? And I'm like, yeah, because it's afforded me the opportunity to impact so many different people. Would I want that experience for somebody else? No, I'm not talking about that kind of blessing. And I love the fact that you use that. I think
what a gift, Bob. What a gift. I wouldn't be doing what I am now.
Right.
Oh, what a gift. I don't
nor all the thousands of people that you've worked with and helped them, they wouldn't have been helped in the same way.
Well, what a gift. I'm chosen. Like
being chosen
and fulfilled. And as you know, we all know it's not easy some days. But I feel so blessed and chosen that the universe, God, whatever you like, I'm happy to call it God. God's trusted me in this.
Yeah. Ooh, that's another great phrase. God trusted you in this.
What a gift.
Good stuff. That's powerful. So we've got people out there right now going, well, wait, am I in one of those relationships? Am I codependent on something? I don't have any addictions. Well, TV, shopping, golf, not working, whatever it is. Do I have that?
Drama. What about drama?
Drama. Oh, I love that. I love that
Anxiety
you
and
said
conflict and
conflict.
Yeah.
So how, I mean, that was a great statement. I watched your videos about that, some of your shorts. I think that's a great observation, that we're dependent on things that we don't even realize we're dependent on, and we're addicted to things we don't even think we're addicted to, because it's not a needle going in our arm, because it's not a bottle being tilted back.
Got it.
We just go, oh, that doesn't occur to us. It's like when people talk about addiction of drugs and alcohol. Oh, like I do intervention work, right?
Yes.
But my therapy, my type of work is intervention. So people, if I say I'm an interventionist, they go, oh, drugs, alcohol. Well, that doesn't apply to me. Oh, how about putting down the fork when you said you weren't going to eat that last bite of cake?
Absolutely.
It's an intervention.
You're right. Absolutely. And people, they say that to me. Oh, I'm not an addict, and we're all addicted to something, and we're addicted to things in our life. And you mind if I just added something here just to do with my story? Because I think it's very pertinent. People addiction is horrific. And each time in the 12 years that after we'd shifted from Australia, that I was leaving my husband and going back, we'd separate. So of course, not good for teenage children when their parents are doing all this. And it wasn't just leaving for a weekend to get a motel. It was 6 months. But what I want to point out is, and I don't think people understand, is I'd leave, but my addiction to my husband, my drug, I didn't use the bottle, he was my bottle, my drug, the withdrawal from that, because I couldn't get the support, kept driving me back. I want people to understand that when we leave people or let go of even a friendship, the withdrawal can drive us back, the pain of it.
Yeah.
Just like a withdrawal, I'm no different. I was no different than a heroin addict or an alcohol. I don't class myself any different.
Wow.
Not like, well, my husband, he was bad, he was an alcoholic, but we were, otherwise we wouldn't be together. We matched each other. His mother was alcoholic, my father, we were the perfect match to do this work, to birth all this stuff that's happening.
So somebody who's watching right now, and they're like, okay, you convinced me. I'm in an unhealthy relationship with someone or something, right? It can be someone or something. And you talked about accountability, which is great to have an accountability person, a sponsor, somebody like that can help you. You talked about getting help, getting somebody to speak into you.
Take one step.
Yeah. What's the one step though? People are sitting there going, what do I take? What do I do first?
Well, get some information, ring me for a discovery call, get someone that you can ring, just take the first step, because then sometimes when people acknowledge, they paralyze and go back in because oh my God, yes, I am. How on earth am I? Because they feel overwhelmed. Take one step. Get some information, get someone that cares, get someone that's done the work, and that's their life purpose, is to help others out of the trenches. Identification and acknowledgement.
Here's what I'll say about that, guys. If you don't realize by now that she has firsthand experience at dealing with this for herself and helping others, you've closed your ears, you've closed your eyes. So, all I can say, I mean, look, I know there's people in the United States. I know there's people that I personally know. I'm just telling you right now, here's a person sitting before you at 3:30 in the morning, her time, to be on this call to talk about this, her life experiences with her mom and her dad and her kids and everything else, and written the books. And, it's not just read a book and said, okay, I'm an expert. Written the books, understood what's going on, what was a cause, so that she could correct it, and she can help you. I'm telling you guys, when you have somebody like this who's sitting there willing to help you, take the first step, do the discovery call, make the email, whatever it is, but do something. Here's somebody that can help you.
Reach out, and don't tell anyone you're reaching out. As I think I mentioned before, don't go to your friend and go, just reach out, just your own little thing, reach out.
Yeah, such a good point. And
Take
you
the
have
first
some
step.
tools, right? You have some tools that they can access and use
I do. I have
on your website. And
I have a website, I have a YouTube channel. And as I said, this book, Bob, it's a practical book because in my state, I couldn't have read a great big textbook. You can't even,
right.
you can't even function.
Yeah.
So it's and it's relatable. I want them to, when they're reading this book, to go, she's reading my mind. And I want it to be a book of hope for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the book's on Amazon as well. I believe people in America, because people have they have to put it into Amazon America to get it. I do have a link, but the book, just like I did, 4 years ago, I got Melody's Beatty's book, Codependent No More. I wasn't on every line, Bob. I was every word. I read it all night. I suddenly had a life raft.
Wow.
That's not meaning I, woke up the next morning and it's taken me years to go to different levels of it and different areas. My book also is written, financial codependency, family aspects of codependent crazies, when we go crazy.
Wow.
Identifying identifying.
Now, are these chapters or subchapters?
Chapters. 10
Chapters.
chapters of different areas, social aspects, of family aspects, vocational aspects, financial aspects, like you said, mental aspects, self-partnering, physical aspects, relationship aspects, and codependent behaviors. And understanding codependent, the mother of all addictions. That's chapter 1.
Man,
it's the mother.
So good. I mean, I've dealt with so many addiction people, and for them to realize that codependency is it's such a vital aspect that you have to understand in order to fix the problems. You're focusing on typically on the problems, but you need to focus on the foundation.
And back in here, under the hood. When the light goes on in the dash of the car, we don't get under the hood and we don't smash the dash. Under the hood, get someone to work with and go deep, become intimate. There's only one person we can heal. When my children are out there and have been for years, I can't do anything about them now. You would know that, Bob, in your work. I can't go and pick them up out of the gutter or anything. But for me to stay alive and for me to, I've had to build great faith, great strength, and that desire that's what's kept me going, to show them another way of living by demonstration, not by talking.
Yeah, that's so true. As we circle this, I really want to address how people are thinking right now about so many different terms. I mean, you look at ADD, that's a label. Bipolar, there's a label. Narcissist, we've gotten so good at putting labels on people so that we don't have a concern that we don't understand. If it's bipolar, and I can identify that they have bipolar, then it doesn't affect me.
Then I'm okay because they've got bipolar. And I'd like to add, I'm working with a lady at the moment. She's 70. We've reduced her ADHD medication by half because it's all of this. We've reduced the madness. We've reduced by her taking actions. She's down to, her medication is down to half. Now, I would never tell people, it's not my right to tell people, but people are running off and getting all the, it's just that's another addiction.
Another addiction.
Because they're not slow down is another one. Slow down and look inside. So they're creating addiction on top of addiction on top of addiction. They're on antidepressants. So then they want to eat more chocolate cake and they're going lower and lower and lower.
So how do you suggest people slow down? Because in a rat race world that, most of us find ourselves in from time to time, if not all the time, then how do you suggest, what's a practice they can have to slow down?
I have a lot of these ideas in the book.
Perfect.
But first of all is look at your commitment. Within my coaching, I have to make sure my people can emotionally manage what I'm giving to them. If I give them too much, it overwhelms them. So look at some of the commitments that you can reduce. Start paying the simple things, Bob. Start streamlining some payments. Shop once a week. Not only that, it saves you money. We all know we go into the supermarket for one loaf of bread and we come out $50 later, especially like I used to be. And then I'd be grabbing the chocolate bar at the counter as well, because I hadn't eaten all day because I'd worked all day. Like, can you see how it? So slow down, reduce some commitments. And I say to my people, if the thought of not doing that gives you relief, then that's the right thing. Now, that doesn't mean they can go and do it the next day, but I build them up to do it.
Love that.
So look at some of your get someone to like your financials, you know.
See, that right there, though, I just want to pause, because that right there, just take a look at your commitments. That's right. I mean, that's such a foundational thing. But what do? We try and fix everything versus just going, hey, how about if I don't need to do some of these things that I could be automated, or some of these things like minimalizing, right? And just, you don't need as much stuff as you have. I went through a purge, and I can fit everything I own literally in a van. I've done it. So
well, me too. I don't want all that stuff now. But what I'd like to say is codependents over obligate, because we feel better when we're doing all this stuff. So it's reducing. So often, especially when you've got school-age children, they're on every committee and they're trying to show up as the best mother over here. So, you know, like, we over obligate. We're addicted, but we're addicted to all of that stuff, those thought patterns, those behaviors.
Yeah.
Because it keeps us in the frequency. We know the neuroscience now. We're feeding our body those chemicals of that addiction. I might not be drinking a bottle of whiskey, but boy, oh boy, what's going into my body when I am addicted to drama, or if I don't feel well, I'll go and control someone else, or I'll try and fix someone else. Yeah.
Do you think that with codependency, some of the manifestation might be in also the ability to be distracted frequently?
We're addicted to, we're running off like a chocolate. Well, I talk about myself, like a chocolate, my head cut off. Well, I'll do this to keep busy. The hardest thing for me, Bob, was I was addicted to being busy. I won't use that word now. People say, oh, you must be busy, Ros, with what got. I say, I don't use that word because I was addicted to it. And also, we're addicted to telling the story. We're telling everybody. We all know those people. How are you? Oh, busy.
Yeah. And what's even worse is people come up to us and go, so how things going? Are you busy?
Yes.
And I go, my focus isn't being on busy. It's on being productive. Yes, I'm productive.
Yes.
But I cut them off because they would love to put that label on us that we're busy.
Well, then, because they want to tell you. And so I've got a phrase now when people say, they do say it to me, oh, Ros, you must be busy. You're doing this. And I go, I don't use that. I'm proactively going with the flow.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, let's open it up to Mike and to Flo on here, and then to ask a question. So whoever wants to go first, hop on, ask a question. And then we'll open it up in Facebook if somebody has a question there too.
Thank you.
I think Mike's going to defer to Flo since she's female, I'm sure. Mike is a gentleman like that.
Hi, Flo.
Wow. I have this topic, Bob asked me, he goes, are you codependent? And I really had to think about it, because my definition of codependent was to a person. And I said, well, yeah, I think I was when I was married, but then talking about all this brought all that stuff back when I went through therapy, because there was a lot of in denial. I mean, you were talking about the PTA. I mean, I would even tell a friend I would call this hand the helium hand. And I would say, shoot it down if you see me having a helium hand, because I would just volunteer. I was a stay-at-home mom. I was codependent on him being the provider. And that's where I stopped. I mean, there's other things that I was codependent on in listening to this. And I was like, wow. And Bob had a great question. He goes, how did it show up? And that I had to really think. I was like, wow, you were saying, you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off. And I was like, well, yeah, I was that too. I was everything. So this is like an eye opener, really.
Good. Yes. Yes.
Because
that's what I want people to wake up.
Yeah.
And if I may just add in there, Flo, I've run workshops in New Zealand, in Auckland, New Zealand, for parents of addicts. And they'd say, I came in here because my child was addicted, but I'm going home with 10 of my own. Because I put it back on, not back on, but take responsibility. We often, like my case, we can't our kids are out there doing, but I do believe also if the parents do the work, even by osmosis and energetically, it goes through. So, but they'd go, I don't know whether they like my workshop or not, because they're like, I came in here because they just looked at my child's an addict, nothing about them. And I would get them to see the benefits, the gifts, and I'd say, now this segment is on the gifts, and they'd look at me like I was nuts.
Yeah.
So thank you, and yeah, thank you for that, Flo.
Thank you for doing what you're doing, and still continuing to go through the trenches and raising yourself up, because that alone is, it's hard. It's hard.
It is every day. You stay committed, not to doing the work, committed to keeping myself sober.
Right. And
now again, I don't use any substance, no pills, no booze, no, what else is there? No needles, but I need to keep sober.
Right.
My sobriety is my number one value.
I love your term, emotional sobriety. I love that.
Good.
I mean, and
so good.
And what came to mind was choose your hard. Marriage can be hard, but divorce can be hard. So choose your hard.
Yes.
So,
yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Roslyn. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Mike Beardsley, if you're there, go ahead and bring yourself on. If you want to make a comment, here he comes.
Hi,
How you
Mike.
doing?
Hi, Mike. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Where about in Australia do you live?
Brisbane, beautiful
Okay.
Brisbane in Queensland. Have you been here?
I live down in Melbourne, down on Port Phillip Bay in a little town called Rye, down from Melbourne.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Beautiful. Oh, well.
Yes.
So are you from Australia?
No, just an Air Force brat.
Oh, great. Okay. Yes.
So
did you get up to Brisbane?
no, and that's where all the snakes and spiders are, the saltwater.
Oh, not too many. It is absolutely exquisite, Mike. So you might have to come down under and make another trip. It's beautiful.
Wonderful. So as you're becoming sober, how do you get back on the sobriety when you fall back into the codependency?
With your support of a support person, and you get we be objective without judgmental on ourselves. There's people, we think that people abuse us or they violate us. There's no one that does it more than we do it to ourselves.
Right.
So we have someone that we can support us, and we get back on the I say get back in our own paddock. In my book, I talk about getting out of your paddock. And when my people ring me, because that's another point of difference with my coaching, is they're allowed to text me anytime through the week, because I know those triggers. And if I can nip them in the bud when I can bring them back, rather than them spiraling down. So it's back in your paddock and back to get out your book and doing it with as least shame and judgment as possible to build that muscle.
So good.
And you find your refractory periods get shorter. We can all be triggered. We're human. We're living in a very addictive society. So no beating up and just go, I've fallen off the horse. In my terms, I've got out of my paddock. I send my people a photo of a horse in a paddock. I go, get back in your paddock. Because usually we fall off the wagon, or whatever it's called, Mike, when we've got out of our paddock.
So true.
over in something else, and it can happen to any of us. And when my people, if they ring me now, I've educated them now, and before I even ask, they go, Ros, I got out of my paddock. I go, right, let's get back in. And recenter and before we keep creating more deluge and more problems.
Thank you. That's powerful.
Yeah, that is powerful. Well said. Thanks. Great question, Mike. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mike.
So, Roslyn, I just got to tell you, this has been such a treat, because I know it's something that we all deal with. Even in the most healthiest relationships, we can become codependent on just a little thing, and then that little thing becomes this massive monster. So I am so thankful that you took the opportunity to be on this call, and that you made the time out of your 3 o'clock morning routine to get up. And
we can't say busy schedule, because I haven't got a schedule at 3 o'clock in the morning.
That's true. That's true. It's a great way to look at it. You can't tell me you're busy on that time.
Not at 3 o'clock. So, well, I'd like to say, Bob, thank you so much. When I saw your call out on Facebook, I thought, yes. And then I thought, oh, it might be a scam, how, so I was checking it all out, and I'm very honored and very, very grateful. Thank you. And for the work you're doing, Bob, as well. We're all, there's an emerging paradigm of people that are stepping outside of the systems. And I know it's difficult for us at times, but the more people we gather, the more the energy, momentum of sobriety, true sobriety, rigorous honesty. That's the hardest part, rigorous honesty.
Yeah, I saw that video of yours, and you're so right. That, I mean, I believe in having difficult conversations. And I think the greatest values typically come from those difficult conversations. And part of that is being rigorously honest with yourself and with others.
Having the raw courage.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I honor you. I appreciate you. I am so thankful that our paths crossed. And who knew when I put that up, what would transpire and how. But I'm so glad that we did, and I look forward. I want to have another conversation. We'll do it again.
I'd love that.
And share that. So we're gonna.
You've been listening to Your Next Level Now with Bob Donnell. To find out more, call us at 949-542-6398. That's 949-542-6398. Or you can find more information on our website at everythingnextlevel.com. That's everythingnextlevel.com.